He barged into the server room, red-faced, panting, and holding a termination letter like it was a court order. "You're done here, Logan," he said, not even trying to mask the tremor in his voice. But I wasn't surprised. I had already mirrored the entire audit log onto an encrypted drive. The real surprise was how sloppy he'd been. A man so obsessed with control, he'd forgotten how systems remember everything. 3 nights earlier, I'd stumbled across a line of code that didn't belong, an undocumented backdoor embedded into a legacy data sharing protocol. At first, I thought it was just poor version control. But the deeper I dug, the clearer it became. This was intentional. And recent. When I brought it up discreetly to my supervisor, Dennis Mallory, Director of Information Security at the Department of Infrastructure, his reaction was strange. Too calm, too quick to brush it off. "I've been in cybersecurity for 12 years. I know what people look like when they're pretending not to be scared. But this was full-blown panic in a lab coat." That was when I knew. I wasn't just dealing with a bad patch or lazy contractor. Someone had planted digital tunnels into the government's critical systems, and Dennis was involved. The funny thing about working in a secure environment is you start to trust the quiet. You assume if something's wrong, someone else will notice. That complacency is what he counted on, and most days he'd be right. But not this time. The next morning, they revoked my clearance. HR said it was a routine restructuring, but I wasn't even allowed to return to my desk. They walked me out like a criminal. No explanation, no hearing, no chance to speak. All because I asked one question. Dennis stood by the glass window of his office as I was escorted past. He didn't look smug. He looked unsettled, like firing me was the first step in a plan he wasn't entirely sure would work. I had been with the department for 7 years. Never a write-up. Never a failed audit. I'd helped architect parts of the disaster response grid after the Cascadia simulation, work that got praise from cabinet-level leadership. And now I was jobless, blacklisted, and watching the department I helped protect rot from the inside out. The worst part? Nobody believed me. Not my colleagues. Not my friends. Even my own brother, a city systems analyst, told me to let it go before I ruined my reputation permanently. "They probably just patched it wrong," he said. "You're overreacting." But I had seen the code. I had traced the logins. Someone was using elevated privileges from remote locations after hours, bouncing access through small municipal VPNs. It was an inside job, and it wasn't just about surveillance. The backdoors led to water utility controls, traffic management systems, disaster response drills. This wasn't just unethical. It was dangerous. They didn't know I had kept backups. They didn't know I'd encrypted them using a method that would take supercomputers years to crack without the keys. And they definitely didn't know I'd once worked on an experimental validation tool that could authenticate government credentials even after a server wipe. A system Dennis himself had called excessively paranoid. When I pitched it, it's funny how the things people mock you for become the exact things they fear later. While Dennis tried to erase my presence from the internal servers, I quietly set up a sandbox system off-site. There, I reconstructed a digital replica of the compromised codebase, every modified packet, every unauthorized access log. I wasn't trying to go public yet, not without absolute proof. But I had connections, people I'd helped in quiet ways over the years. A DHS consultant named Gina had once come to me with a critical bug she couldn't trace. I fixed it in 2 hours and never asked for credit. Now she owed me. I sent her a message with just 4 words: check the E6 protocol. No screenshots, no explanation. Just enough to raise alarm bells in the right ears. While Dennis celebrated my exit, I was already steps ahead, building a map of every point he thought he'd hidden. My dismissal gave me time, and I was going to use every second of it. He thought he'd cut off the threat. But I'd only just started pulling the thread. The more I unraveled, the darker it got. These weren't just backdoors for monitoring or access. They were kill switches, silent, catastrophic toggles embedded deep inside city infrastructure. One command could reroute emergency services. Another could disable water treatment facilities. And worst of all, the digital fingerprints pointed to one chilling fact. Someone was selling these access points. Through shell companies and encrypted foreign transactions, Dennis had created a silent marketplace for critical control. I wasn't just up against a corrupt bureaucrat, I was facing a black market broker who'd weaponized public infrastructure. That's when Gina called me. Voice trembling. "Logan, the E6 protocol? You're right. There's a red flag at National Cyber Command. Internal memos. Quiet panic. They're tracing it now, but you're on the wrong side of this politically. You could disappear." Disappear, I laughed. It wasn't funny, but it was all I had left in that moment. They already fired me, Gina. What else are they gonna do? Erase my social security number? She didn't laugh. You don't understand. This goes higher than Mallory. The next day, I got a message from a secure drop account I hadn't used in years. It was from someone I'd worked with during my time consulting for the Joint Systems Redundancy Task Force, alias Kite. Message: "They know you've seen the trigger string. You need to go dark now." That was the moment I realized I wasn't just a whistleblower anymore. I was a threat to people with real power, and they were getting desperate. I disappeared, but only in the ways they could track. Burner devices, proxy networks, old-school cryptographic tools. I even pulled out my father's shortwave transmitter, because analog can't be hacked. I built a plan. First, I uploaded a decoy set of files to a secure cloud drive. It included partial code, suspicious logs, but nothing truly damaging. I let it leak to a few trusted journalists, knowing Dennis would take the bait and try to discredit it publicly. He did, and with arrogance. He called it tinfoil garbage on a national cybersecurity forum. His words. Archived. Then I initiated phase 2. Gina connected me with an internal review board quietly. She arranged a call with a senator on the Tech Oversight Committee who'd been looking for a case to expose systemic abuse without implicating the entire department. I gave them everything. The real files, the timeline, the access logs. But I had one condition. Let me trigger the confrontation. They agreed. So I requested a public arbitration hearing through a legal loophole, a right still afforded to terminated federal contractors under whistleblower protection clauses. And I knew Dennis's ego wouldn't let him skip it. He showed up smiling, confident, ready to destroy me in front of a panel and bury everything, until I plugged in the drive and displayed a real-time simulation of the water grid override from his own user ID. He turned pale. When I showed the banking logs, he went silent. The room was dead quiet except for the hum of the server fan under the table. I finished my presentation with 2 words: he sold us. Then I sat down. Dennis tried to speak, denied everything, blamed rogue contractors, claimed forged logs, even suggested I had mental health issues. But it was too late. The data wasn't just undeniable. It was irrefutable. It had been verified by a third-party cyber forensics team under Senate oversight, without his knowledge. Every transaction, every login, every betrayal. When the FBI entered the room and escorted him out in cuffs, he looked at me, not with hatred, but with the exhausted disbelief of a man who just realized he bet on the wrong illusion of power. He didn't say a word. A week later, I was reinstated. Not to the same role, to a higher one. National Cyber Integrity Advisor. The kind of title that comes with a locked door and the authority to say no. And the best part? A formal, televised apology from the department head, read word for word. Mr. Barrett's integrity and technical expertise have not only protected our systems, but exposed a threat we failed to detect. We owe him more than just reinstatement. We owe him our trust. I never wanted revenge. I just wanted the truth to win. But seeing Dennis's face when the walls closed in, that was satisfying too. Because in the end, he wasn't taken down by me. He was taken down by his own arrogance, and by a system he thought he had mastered, finally turning back to bite.